Now we're joined by Professor Omer Moav, a professor of economics at Reichman University, formerly known as the IDC, and the University of Warwick, joining us from Coventry, England. Thanks for the time with us. Now, this budget clearly is seen as a major gauge of this new government's long-term viability, but any major hurdles remaining for them in order for it to pass, as far as we can tell?
Well, I guess the political hurdles are quite clear. I think the main issue, as mentioned before, is that the coalition is quite narrow. And the problem is that within this coalition, there is a strong opposition, mainly the more socialist parties like the Labour and Meretz, many of Kahol Lavan, who oppose many of the reforms that are in the economic arrangements law, which is part of the budget, like the law that is designed to improve regulation in Israel, the law that is designed to allow the reform in the farming. So these are many arrangements and laws that are designed to improve the life of the Israeli citizens, to improve the cost of living. But there is a strong opposition within the government, within the coalition, unfortunately.
Now, that was really leading me into the pressing question here. And I think the one many Israelis are asking is, what are the most significant changes being proposed? You mentioned some of those reforms. We know there's new taxes on sugary drinks, plastic plates. But what do you think will truly be have the largest effect on the average Israeli?
Well, what could have a large effect is if there is an improvement in the regulation. And part of the problem in Israel, and these are objective facts, that the cost of living in Israel is high. And to improve the quality of living of the Israeli citizen, in particular those who come from the low-income families, one needs to reduce the cost of living, mainly of food and other basic goods. And to do that, we need a more competitive economy. Part of this is opening the Israeli economy to the world trade, allowing more imports of foods, food that is produced in an inefficient way in Israel, part of it, and could be imported for a lower cost. And part of it is that there is a lack of competition because of the very bad regulation and bureaucracy in Israel. So any small company that wants to compete faces such a high hurdle of regulation, that it makes it very difficult, especially when importing and especially when it comes to food or health issues that need a lot of permits. And as a result of that, we see less players in the Israeli economy and higher prices. So that's so there's a very important part in the budget which could improve a lot the life of Israelis.
Yeah, the plight of
I could also mention that there is an increase in investment in infrastructure, which is good news. But there's also some bad news.
It seems inevitable, the double-edged sword of all these reforms mentioned. But looking at the fact that we have no updated budget since 2019, how bad is the damage from this recent chapter?
So the damage from the fact that there was no budget for a few years now, well, I think part of it was that a lot of money was spent during the COVID crisis in a way that was very populist and irresponsible. And today we are beyond that period, but the debt is still there. So the Netanyahu government behaved in a way that created a large debt. A debt that we will need to pay, us and our children and our grandchildren, for many years. So I think it's really important that finally there will be a budget. And the budget looks pretty good. I don't like the fact that there was this increase in the defense budget, mainly, or part of it that just goes That's to right. increase.
Professor Moav, sorry to cut in on you here. We're approaching the break here on the live television, but Professor Omer Moav, thank you for breaking down the pressing budget issues. We'll be right back.